ship fans, nice to meet you on the Elbe dike again. After a full week of rain and storm, I could finally return to the dike. And you come with me. Coming from Hamburg was the One Readiness, a 2023 built container ship with a length of 273 meters and a beam of 43 meters. She was underway to Antwerp. The container ship Ever a Lot was built in 2022, is 400 meters long, 62 meters wide and was underway to Rotterdam. Sailing from Hamburg to Thames in Great Britain was Milan Maersk. Built in 2017, she is 399 meters long and 59 meters wide. This is the MSC Cindy. The container ship was built in 2007, has a length of 337 meters, a beam of 46 meters and was underway to Bremerhaven. On tour from Copenhagen and Denmark to Hamburg was the Red Ruth. This feeder was built in 2008, is 134 meters long and 23 meters wide. Elbe wind is always around, because we always have wind on the Elbe. On a more serious note, this is a 2012 built feeder ship with a length of 152 meters and a beam of 23 meters. Her destination was Rotterdam. The Maersk Seoul was underway to Thames in Great Britain. She was built in 2006, is 332 meters long and 43 meters wide. On tour from Antwerp to Hamburg was the SC Houston. This container ship is 15 years old, 195 meters long and 32 meters wide. Acacia is 21 years old, 149 meters long and 23 meters wide. Acacia's tour went from Göteborg in Sweden to Hamburg. The MSC liner was overtaken by a rain shower that came fast in my direction. And so the rain shower reached me before the ship. The MSC Elena is a 2014 built container ship with a length of 300 meters and a beam of 48 meters. She came from Rotterdam Maasvlakte. The feeder that is D was built in 2009, is 168 meters long and 27 meters wide. She drove from Bremerhaven to Hamburg. In the late sunset, the Tamer Express from Hapag-Lloyd came up the Elbe. She was built in 2012, is 366 meters long and 48 meters wide. She came from Rotterdam Maasvlakte and drove to Hamburg. Out of the haze came the container ship MSC Joanna. She's 19 years old, 337 meters long, 46 meters wide, and came from Felixstowe in Great Britain. The general cargo vessel Longedon was built in 2025, is 131 meters long, 16 meters wide, and drove from Hamburg to Køge in Denmark. Anna was underway to Szczecin in Poland. She's 19 years old, 168 meters long and 26 meters wide. A little bit of love couldn't hurt for the Porto Terminal. A 2002 built container ship with a length of 281 meters and a beam of 40 meters. She came from Rotterdam Maasvlakte. The Conroe Grande Africa came from Banjul in Gambia. Banjul is the major capital of Gambia in Africa. She was built in 1998, has a length of 214 meters and a beam of 32 meters. The short-range container ship CMA-CGM Mermaid caught the only sun rays of the day. She was built in 2024, is 204 meters long, 30 meters wide, came from Bremerhaven and drove to Hamburg. From Erith in Great Britain came the freighter Jonah Borg. Her size is 89 to 12 meters and she was built in 2004. On tour from Antwerp to Stade near Hamburg was the tanker Corelli. Built in 2021, she is 100 meters long and 14 meters wide. The freighter Simon B is 39 years old, 82 meters long, 11 meters wide, and drove to Aalborg in Denmark. The LPG tanker Happy Penguin came from Terneuzen in the Netherlands and drove to Stade. She's 12 years old, 113 meters long and 20 meters wide. It already got dark when the ever top came down the Elbe from Hamburg. She was built in 2022, is 400 meters long, 62 meters wide, and was underway to Rotterdam. The freighter Amalia was underway to Porsgrunn in Norway. She was built in 2024, is 150 meters long and 15 meters wide. Sailing from Rotterdam Maasvlakte to Hamburg was the one innovation, a 2023 built container ship with a size of 400 to 61 meters. Dub Kampala is 24 years old, 300 meters long, 43 meters wide, and was underway to Piraeus in Greece. The 8-year-old tanker Atlantis Alicante measures 106 to 17 meters and came from Terneuzen in the Netherlands. The bulk carrier Lemby came from Rotterdam Botlek and drove to Hamburg. She's 13 years old, has a length of 179 meters and a beam of 29 meters. The tanker Atlantic Twin came from IJmuiden in the Netherlands. Built in 2008, she is 150 meters long and 22 meters wide. This is the Deutsche Weite Spurring. She drove empty in the direction of Hamburg, was built in 2012, is 119 meters long and 23 meters wide. The 20-year-old feeder Frederick is 155 meters long, 25 meters wide and drove to Kotka in Finland. Later, the freighter Arlo Accord came by on her way from Bützfles near Hamburg to Dunkirk East in France. She is 5 years old, 120 meters long and 15 meters wide. This is the general cargo vessel Myler. She's 19 years old, 90 meters long, 13 meters wide and drove to Santander in Spain. The 9-year-old Callao Express from Hapag-Lloyd came from Rotterdam Maasvlakte and drove to Hamburg. She has a length of 333 meters and a beam of 48 meters. On tour from Cuxhaven to Hamburg was the freighter Amberland. She's 15 years old, 106 meters long and 16 meters wide. Right in the morning, the container ship Shinchong King came by on her tour from Hamburg to Antwerp. She was built in 2003, has a length of 263 meters and a beam of 32 meters. The 20-year-old feeder Endurance drove to Rotterdam, is 135 meters long and 22 meters wide. Regularly, the ships from the Hamburg Express class from Hapag-Lloyd do not drive to Hamburg anymore. But sometimes there is an exception. The Hanoi Express was built in 2023, is 400 meters long, 61 meters wide, drives under German flag and came from Rotterdam Maasvlakte. The tanker Eliza Lex Schulte was built in 2011, is 145 meters long, 23 meters wide and drove to Rotterdam. From Bayonne in France came the tanker Amethyst. She's 23 years old, 92 meters long and 14 meters wide. The feeder Elbe is 16 years old and has a size of 168 to 27 meters. She came from Bremerhaven and drove to Hamburg. The container ship Seiner Pakitingi was built in 2023, is 172 meters long and 24 meters wide. She came from Antwerp. From Glückstadt came the work vessel Cat 7. Built in 2012, she has a length of 51 meters and a beam of 12 meters. The tanker Ginger Copper came from Bützflev near Hamburg and drove to Antwerp. Built in 2019, she's 159 meters long and 26 meters wide. On tour to Drammen in Norway was Bianca Rambo. Bianca Rambo is 134 meters long, 23 meters wide and was built in 2004. Judith came from Bremerhaven, was built in 2008, is 170 meters long and 25 meters wide. The container ship MSC Lausanne 6 is 20 years old and has a size of 283 to 40 meters. She came from Hamburg and drove to Bremerhaven. From Rotterdam Maasvlakte came the MSC Azov. She's 11 years old, 300 meters long and 48 meters wide. The catamaran Hollanderjet was for the last time on its daily tour from Hamburg to Heligoland because the season 2025 came to an end. The catamaran was built in 2018, is 57 meters long, 14 meters wide and drives with a speed of up to 36 knots. Sailing from Hamburg to Antwerp was the container ship Sea Trade Charlie. Built in 2024, she has a length of 172 meters and a beam of 28 meters. On tour from Deindeloord in the Netherlands to stayed near Hamburg was the freighter EEMS Tjonge. Built in 2012, she's 87 meters long and 13 meters wide. Nordica came from Fredericia in Denmark, is 14 years old, 152 meters long and 23 meters wide. Everything in life is a circle. And so we end the video with the same type of ship that we had started it off with. The one recommendation was built in 2024, has a length of 273 meters, a beam of 43 meters, and came from Southampton in Great Britain. And so we come to an end for today. I hope you liked it with me on the dike and we will meet us again. Until then, stay healthy, have lovely people around you. Ciao, says your Bavarian on the Elbe.